We're back again with Andrew Katelaris talking about research into different treatments for epilepsy. He's been working on an epilepsy protocol. Can you explain what you've been researching at the moment with cannabis treatment?
Okay. What we've taken a dozen children with intractable childhood epilepsies. Now, we'll explain that again. Intractable epilepsy simply means epilepsy that hasn't responded to all previous treatments. Right? So unlike what we were told by Gillian Skinner, that all diseases can be adequately treated by what they've got now, most 30 to 40% of epileptic patients generally still suffer seizures despite maximal medication. But in this particular group that we're involved with, they suffer dozens of seizures daily despite maximal therapy.
Right.
Our results so far have been very, very encouraging. Right? We haven't had a failure, firstly, touch wood. They've all responded positively with at least 80% reduction in frequency and intensity of seizures.
That's brilliant.
We're working on various combinations of the cannabinoids to improve this even further.
So tell me, with the treatment, can you let slide what sort of things you're doing? Is it in an injection or a tablet?
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not. No, we extract the cannabis in two different ways, right? The first way is using trimmed dried bud or flowers, which is placed in an oil carrier, either glycerin or medium chain triglyceride oil, and sonicated. And then that is the oil that's medicine. It's a broad spectrum cannabinoid extract into vegetable oils. The other way is to use an organic solvent such as alcohol to dissolve the cannabinoids and then evaporate that to concentrate them as a resin.
So they digest that, they ingest it and with food or just...
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it depends. The way we're moving towards the formulation is to make them more and more potent. So it'll actually be administered simply as drops of oil on the tongue or in the gums. So it's absorbed by the mucosal route, which is, especially when it's mixed with medium chain triglyceride, is very rapidly absorbed.
Okay. What about a vaporized or an inhaler or a nasal spray? Could that work as well?
Well, I mean, lots of things can work, but we're having excellent results with simple technology, right? GW Pharmaceuticals have gone to great lengths to produce this silly aerosol container, which is totally unnecessary. For specific conditions, and much more likely in adults than 1-year-old child, right? I mean, the vaporizer is a good idea for a number of reasons. Smoked or vaporized cannabis is absorbed 2 to 3 times more efficiently than eaten or oral cannabis. So, yeah, it's a good idea, but a fitting 1-year-old is not your ideal patient for using a vaporizer.
Right, I see.
Okay?
Yep.
Also, what we found as an emergency, a rescue remedy, if we make the oils concentrate enough, during a seizure, you can either pipe some into the gum, or if that's sort of considered too hazardous, you can actually rub it on the skin. Transdermal absorption seems quite efficient. Right.
So just doesn't have to be broken skin. It can go in just sound skin and not even gums or tongue.
Sound skin at this stage. I mean, we've got limited experience with that, with terminating seizures by topical application. But as our experience grows, I'll be able to say with more confidence that that's a reasonable route of administration. But for now, we're happy with standardising it to mucosal absorption.
This sounds like groundbreaking research. Are there any other studies or countries in the world or are you pioneering this very research today?
Oh, I wish. I mean, in Australia, we're playing catch-up.
Okay.
Right?
What else has gone before you?
Sad. I mean, I'd like to say I was a sort of Albert Schweitzer out there on sort of the crest of the hill, but there's a lot of other people working on it. We don't often hear a lot of the results, and my impression is some of the results are being not suppressed but delayed. From the big medical centres in Israel and places like that, we're not hearing the sort of results being collated, even though we know they're treating thousands and thousands of patients.
So is this probably to do with the pharmaceuticals leaning on government or legislation?
I mean, if the pharmaceutical companies were to discover a drug that was had curative action in, say, a dozen different diseases, I mean, every headline of every newspaper would be saturated with that news, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, these things have been discovered several years ago, and they're just being leaked out in increments, right?
Right.
There's probably a lot more work being done at the community and individual level, the family level, and that isn't being brought to media, so we don't actually know know what's going on. I mean, how many people are actually successfully self-medicating? They tend not to speak up because they'll become the butt of legal enforcement.
Because of the illegality of the...
Exactly, right?
Right.
I mean, if you're self-treating from your backyard herb, and it's very easy for a parent to produce a medicinal extract, we've demonstrated it on TV, it's not hard. There's almost no wrong way to do it. You know, you can do it better or not so good, but I mean, they're all had some value. You know, you'd be remiss in my mind if you weren't doing that.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're doing great work. So 12, how many, again, were the young people that you, with the epilepsy that you're dealing with?
Say again?
How many epileptic people are you dealing with in your treatment?
Look, this is the program. Firstly, I might have mentioned earlier that I was working more specifically with CBD. I'm doing that for a number of reasons, because I think it has additional brain healing factors beyond the THC. So we only have a limited amount of material to work with. We want to test its effectiveness, so we're in the process of doing that. What we hope to do, excuse me for a minute, what we hope to do on the 27th of May, I think it is, John Kay, the Green upper house member in New South Wales, will be discussing his medical cannabis bill. And at that stage, I hope to be given an opportunity to present the clinical vignettes of these dozen patients.
That's great.
Is that clear? That's where it's going. And we hope to use that to strengthen the case morally and practically to rapidly introduce appropriate legislation.
That's great. Can you tell me just now about side effects of typical side effects of standard epilepsy medication? You know?
Oh, they vary. They vary from unsteadiness, somnolence, lack of ability to learn. You can go backwards with your swallowing reflex. Some of them, especially in some of the genetic epilepsies like Dravet syndrome, they can actually exacerbate the seizures themselves. You can get hideous skin rashes. You can get blood dyscrasias with marrow suppression. There's no end to it.
That's a lot. Wow. So,
and they're not controlling the seizures. See, they've been brought into action because some statistician has managed to sort of torture the data to show that you've got a 20% improvement over brand X. Therefore, you're licensed to flog them to an unsuspecting public.
So that's all they really need to prove effectiveness, 20% improvement.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Wow. But you're saying that in your cases that you've worked with, you've had 80% reduction, and so in 80% of the people it's been beneficial? Is that the...
No, in 100% of the kids it's been at least 80% beneficial.
Right.
As measured in the frequency of seizures, the frequency and intensity of the seizures. But it's measured in terms of improved affect, better behaviour, more stable, happier, generally faster learning. It's been 100%.
That's brilliant. All right, Andrew. Well,
unbelievable. I mean, you can't hide the truth indefinitely, and this is the truth.
How can people support you in your work, and how can they help promote the research and knowledge that you're sharing?
Okay, we're currently being held back by a health minister, Gillian Skinner, right? And at the same time, this person is Minister for Medical Research. So she's responsible for a multi-billion-dollar budget. As it turns out, her only professional experience is that of a political reporter. She's scientifically illiterate, and happy to quote mistruths for political purposes to shore up a political position that is untenable. That is, that medical cannabis is not an appropriate thing to do in the soonest possible time. I would really like an avalanche of letters to land on that woman's desk so that she modifies her sources of information and changes her behaviour.
Right. So instead of that, what sort of paperwork or material would you send her? Where would you recommend a listener go to find this information and complain to their and also her position? What's her MP portfolio? What can you state that again?
Gillian Skinner is Minister for Health and Minister for Medical Research. If you Google the project medical cannabis, you'll come across an article that was done, a piece that was done, about a 6-minute piece, about 2 weeks ago now,
right,
in which we demonstrate, or we interview, I suppose, medical cannabis patients, and then we hear quoted from Ms. Skinner the fact that what we're saying is not accurate, that there are adequate treatments and everything's good as it is. Simply watch that on the YouTube, and that'll provide enough of information for a letter to the Minister asking her to show, firstly, greater degree of scientific bloody knowledge and a greater degree of ethical behaviour and, start supporting this project.
Excellent. Andrew Katelaris, is there a website that people can visit to see you or your work?
Not at this stage. There will be. But at this stage, unlike other people, I like to actually be certain of the things I say. When our study is finished, our results can't be published because it's not a formal study. But when our results are collated, we will certainly be displaying them on a website so people can go and see them very, very clearly.
How long do you think when will that be?
All going well, certainly before the end of this year.
Great.
It depends on a lot of things, right? But yeah, we don't, the lives of these kids hangs in the balance. Without being dramatic or anything like that, kids die every week. Epileptic children die of uncontrolled seizures. Or every day and every hour, they suffer ongoing brain damage.
Right.
Right? Just because we're not publishing the stuff doesn't mean we're not working a lot faster than that. But my sort of ethos is do the stuff first, talk about it later.
Okay, well, thank you very much for talking about it at the moment, and I'm happy to know that you're working on this important research. I have close friends who, in their family, there's epilepsy, and I want to see everyone be able to heal and cure and solve their problems without any side effects and actually improve the quality of life for people suffering with epilepsy.
Yeah, of course. You think that's the right of every child in this country.
Yes, definitely. Andrew, I hope to speak with you later in the year when your research is getting to the end of it, when you're wrapping it up.
Okay. Thanks for your ongoing support, Chris.
That's all right. Now, this will be put through Hereward Fenton's podcast, Truth News Radio Australia. I'm Chris Toland for Truth News Radio Australia, and I've just been talking with Andrew Katelaris. See you later, Andrew.
Okay. So thanks
very much for that. That's great.